He lost £1.5 million betting on football, and now he wants it back. This isn't just another gambling sob story though, it's a court battle that could change how betting companies are expected to protect their customers. Because a property investor from Leeds spent 10 years placing thousands of bets on Betfair's exchange, before turning around and suing them, saying that they should have stopped him. So the question is, where does responsibility actually lie? Is it with the bookmaker or the bettor? Because if he wins this case, it will change sports betting for everyone and possibly start an avalanche of additional claims. The man at the centre of this case is Lee Gibson, a 47-year-old property investor from Leeds who made millions flipping houses, at presumably hefty profit margins, and renting property to students and people who couldn't afford to buy. Around 2009, he started betting on Betfair's exchange, mainly on correct score football matches. Now, over the next 10 years, he placed more than 30,000 bets in total. As his legal team point out, that's about 5 bets per day on average. Some of them are reported to be as high as £20,000 on a single football match. Now, it didn't go unnoticed because, as a high stakes customer, Betfair treated him as a VIP, giving him hospitality at football matches, invites to golf events, and a personal account manager. By 2019, he'd lost just under 1.5 million in total. This is the point where Betfair suspended his betting account, and also where the trouble started. You see, instead of walking away, Mr. Gibson filed a lawsuit against Betfair claiming that they should have stopped him. Now, within that original hearing, several claims were made. He claimed that they knew or should have known that he had a gambling problem. The judge in the original hearing, though, didn't buy it. Within the court summary, he described Gibson as unreliable, saying that he'd repeatedly misled and misrepresented himself, not only to Betfair, but to others that he'd dealt with. But still, Gibson hasn't finished chasing his losses, because this week it's been reported that he is appealing the outcome, which means 3 senior judges are going to decide whether Betfair, or any other betting company for that matter, should be legally responsible for protecting someone from themselves. And that's where this story gets really interesting. Not just legally, but morally. Gibson's argument is simple on paper. He says that because he was a long-term customer, betting huge amounts and even had a personal account manager, Betfair knew or should have known he was a problem gambler. His lawyers argue that being treated as a VIP meant Betfair had a duty of care, that they'd taken on responsibility to make sure that he didn't cause himself financial harm. But let's look at the details for a second, because Gibson wasn't betting against Betfair for a start. He was using the betting exchange, matching bets against other punters. Betfair was simply the middleman, taking a small commission from the winner. Now, we know that he placed 5 bets per day and stakes up to £20,000 on a bet. On a betting exchange, where the primary purpose is to bet, trade and cash out, 5 bets in a day is literally nothing. Each time you cash out a bet, that's 2. £20,000 is obviously well above the average, but it's not exactly earth-shattering either. Premier League football matches regularly have millions traded per game, and every day thousands of people spend more on holidays, cars and luxury goods. Furthermore, the newspapers report that he had also passed every affordability check undertaken. He told Betfair he was a millionaire landlord and backed it up with documents. And then there's the complaint, only raised after 10 years worth of sports betting. It makes me wonder, if he'd won £1.5 million instead, would he be giving it all back? Would we even be having this conversation? I have very little sympathy for betting companies, as long-time viewers of this channel will know, but we've got to be fair here. Where does the player's responsibility end and the bookies, or the banks, start? When this case first reached the High Court, the judge didn't hesitate. He rejected Gibson's claim, saying Betfair wasn't responsible for his losses and that he'd actively misled them about his gambling habits. The judgment described Gibson as unreliable, noting that he'd taken steps to hide the true scale of his betting and present himself as fully in control. Even after reviewing all the evidence, the court said that there was no real suggestion he couldn't afford what he was doing. He had money coming in from the property, and Betfair had repeatedly verified the income. The judge also made a key legal point. Betting companies don't owe a general duty of care to stop customers from losing money. They have regulatory obligations, things like anti-money laundering, checks and affordability reviews, but that's not the same thing as a legal duty to intervene. That position comes from an earlier case, Calvert v William Hill, back in 2008, which ruled that even if a customer says that they've got a gambling problem, it doesn't automatically make the bookmaker liable for their losses. Although Gibson's lawyers say that this case is different. They claim it's different because of the VIP treatment that he received. They argue that by assigning him a relationship manager and giving him free bets, Betfair took on a level of responsibility. However, Betfair's lawyers are having none of it. Their legal team told the Court of Appeal that even if Betfair suspected he had a problem, that doesn't create a civil duty to stop him betting, especially when the evidence shows that he told them quite the opposite. Can you believe it? This is something that I see quite a lot online when people have contacted me. They also made the point that even if Betfair had cut him off earlier, Gibson probably would have bet the same amounts elsewhere. And that's the crux of it. This isn't just about one man's losses. It's about whether a bookmaker's role should include social care for adults too. If Gibson wins his appeal, the consequences could be catastrophic for an entire industry. I mean, personally, I've placed hundreds of thousands of bets, if not millions of bets, in my time. And I've bet larger stakes than Gibson too. So does that mean if I should declare myself as a problem gambler, I could be in line for a refund too? From what I've seen, the public seem to think the answer is obvious. For 10 years, Gibson didn't complain once. He passed affordability checks, and when things were going well, he didn't question it. Only after the losses came did responsibility shift. And the irony? This is someone who made millions flipping property, renting to students, buying and selling, and moving fast at high risk in business. Nobody asked whether his customers could afford it. Yet here he is asking if Betfair should have protected him. The truth is, this case is really about common sense in a world where irresponsibility seems to be totally out of control at the moment. So the big question is, what happens next? The appeal decision hasn't yet landed, but whichever way it goes, it's ridiculous. If Gibson should win, then there's going to be a huge opportunity for other punters to file lawsuits against bookies and reclaim their losses. If Betfair should win, it shows just how useless and stupid most of these checks are and how the bookies shouldn't be the ones doing them. What do you think? Should platforms like Betfair step in sooner, or is that crossing into personal choice? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you think this case is wild, wait until you see this next story here, because William Hill deployed these checks and called the police on a £12,000 winner when he came to collect. That one is something else.